Thanks. So was all that stuff true?
I can't say.
Are you that funny?
I'm.
Say something funny.
You didn't tell me Warren was going to be here.
I know, I'm a bit
All
nervous about that.
all my Warren-based material has to be changed now.
We're all especially nervous now because Warren's here. So anyway, hey.
Hey.
When I was first asked to do this talk, I thought we need some sort of structure, or it's just going to be us rambling for quite a long time. And so the first thing I thought was we've got about 60 minutes. We could just break it into 15 minutes each of the most important questions in gaming, which are games really art? Do games cause actual violence in the real world? If you were a flower, what flower would you be? And when is Psychonauts 2 coming out? But then I thought that no one really wants to hear that, and you'll just scratch your own eyeballs out if you had to answer those questions. So we're not going to ask anything about Psychonauts 2 tonight.
What? No?
The whole talk's about Psychonauts 2.
So yes, 10, no.
Yes, 10, a
No.
geranium.
I didn't even did I get that out of order? No, yes, no.
And a rose.
Yeah.
An English rose.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just move away from this topic altogether. So anyway, I took a different angle, and I thought in the literary world, I don't even know anything about the hero's journey. There's a thing called the hero's journey, a dude called Joseph Campbell. Hey! Check it out. The hero's journey is a concept that this guy called Joseph Campbell, who's a mythologist, came up with, and he looked at all the cultures in the world, and or as many as he could, there's probably a lot of them. And he found out all these sort of heroes stories that every culture's got, and they shared a lot of sort of similar themes and similar character archetypes and stuff. And I thought just about every interview that I've ever read about Tim, everyone always says, and the hero, Tim Schafer, and my hero, Tim Schafer. They also said you were very funny, and that that game was the funniest game that they've ever, or something, and something about a flower. But everyone sort of calls you the hero, and so I thought, I wonder what would happen if we put Tim Schafer's life and Double Fine against the hero's journey monomyth, it's called a monomyth. And by George, it kind of worked enough that I could hack it into a kind of talk, and it's probably going to fall apart halfway through. So welcome everyone to the hero's journey, starring Tim Schafer, which we worked out will probably not offend Tim as much as it offends religious people, so sorry about that. It's an old painting. There's some stuff going on there. So anyway, Hollywood caught on to the monomyth, and they've just used the same story. Star Wars is the most famous one. Luke Skywalker's journey is pretty much the hero's journey. And then Hollywood realised that that makes a pretty good story, and so they just keep making the same story over and over again, using this exact same thing. Sometimes it works. Disney uses it. The Matrix used it. Lord of the Rings used it before they found out about the monomyth. We'll just move on.
They're very cynical about the monomyth.
Very cynical. I was worried because when I talked to him about the monomyth, he said, "Oh, I don't really like it."
My college anthropology teacher told me, "Don't believe that."
Don't believe the and I'm like, "Oh no, my whole talk was about the monomyth, and he hates it." This is going to be 60 hours of silence. So anyway, we'll cover that, and so we're going to get to the very first stage of the monomyth and the hero's journey is the ordinary world, and this is where the main hero starts in something that's very plain, very boring. They don't really like being there, and
Psychonauts? You're just saying.
That's not the most fun game ever made, though. This is that was brutal.
I actually was fooled by that loading screen. I thought something was coming up.
I thought, well, this thing is that I thought all your games start in the action and in a really cool sort of action moment. So the only thing I've got was the loading screen as to where we're in the ordinary world. That's the justification I've got for putting that slide up, and we'll just carry on and move straight past that. So anyway, this talk is about the Double Fine being the quest and you being the hero going for that quest. And so I thought before the in the ordinary world, you were at LucasArts, and that's where we're going to start. How ordinary was it?
Skywalker Ranch was not very ordinary.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
this whole talk's falling apart right now.
It did look like that though. It had trees and birds.
And little birds.
I saw a rattlesnake there once in a mountain lion.
And you're frightened of Australia with all its snakes and things.
Yeah, well, our rattlesnakes, you have spiders that could kill a mountain lion.
And you can hear a rattlesnake coming, can't you?
Yeah, our toughest animal could probably be eaten by your smallest little drop bear.
We'll watch them. You've got to watch them.
But Skywalker Ranch is George Lucas's special preserve. He's hidden away on Lucas Valley Road, which is totally a coincidence to name that. But the address is 58.
Doesn't sound very
Lucas
secret,
Valley Drive.
really?
If you want to go visit him, and that's where I worked for the first year, and we started Monkey Island there, and it was just this really tranquil, beautiful, peaceful setting, and it was just like my first job out of college, and I was like, yeah, this is what it's supposed to be like, right? It's this beautiful job, movie stars walking around, and it was pretty surreal and crazy. And then years later, we brought Ron and James Dio there to record voice together, and then I gave them on a tour of where I used to work when I was 20. it's just a collection of surreal memories from that place. It's very strange.
So how big was the actual games team that you were on? Like, I imagine Skywalker Ranch is pretty big.
Yeah, we were just in the back, like it was called the stable house, but it was not. There were no horses there or anything like that. And there were 40 people there when I started.
Okay. Sweet. And next question is your goals and aspirations as a 20-year-old getting into the industry. And I can see a lot of 20-year-olds who are getting into the industry right here now.
Go to Skywalker Ranch.
There you go.
It's worked for me. I'm sure you'd be welcome there. There would be people camped outside when we were leaving the office, like trying to get in, but there's like security, very, very tight security.
Oh, really? So you didn't steal any Wookiee costumes or anything?
So once we're leaving, and there was a car there, and they're like, "Excuse us, is this what is this place?" They were acting like they didn't, like they weren't there stalking George. We're like, it's a farm. I'm like, oh, they were German. I'm gonna do my German accent. It's gonna be terrible. And they're like, oh, is it a film farm?
Do make Ewoks here,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Apologies to any Germans here. That's the worst accent I've ever done. So your goals as a game designer when you first started out, you got your first job there. Where did you want to take the career?
I was always I've always been a very kind of go with the flow kind of person. So I was just there, like, I can't believe I'm here. I don't know what's going to happen next. Like, I meet young people now, and they've got such a direction, and like they've thought it out, and they went to a certain school because they had a good program in this, and they planned to do that. And I was just like, I went to that school because that's where people from my high school went, you know. And I just kind of found myself at Lucas, and I was just it was just, you know, so stunned that I was there that I didn't really have much of a plan. That's not good advice for the youth.
Yeah. Well, it worked. Whatever happened, follow that plan. You studied programming, so was there a kind of a plan to become a programmer?
No, I picked that major because I thought since I already know how to program, it would be easy to get through college. And it was not. That was not true at all, because I failed my first computer science class, the very first class I ever took in college, because there's this thing when you get to college where you find out you don't have to go to class, and you're so excited about that because you spent your whole senior year in high school trying not to go to class, and then you can actually get away with it. And then it turns out you need to actually go to class to pass. So that was a good lesson. Yeah. I think they know you're going to do that. It's just all part of the trickery. But you know, I still like programming, but I really was getting into all the classes that I had to take just for general education. Turned out to be the things that I really valued. Like outside of my major, I had to take an anthropology course, and that was just fascinating class about, you know, everything from riddles to folklore to jump rope rhymes to recipes. It was just like studying like oral literature and all these things from all over the world. And that's where we studied the Day of the Dead, and that's where the ideas for Grim Fandango came from that class. And I studied a class on the psychology of dreams, and that's like a lot of the ideas of psychonauts came from that. So I went with this really, you know, this directed thing to major in computer science, but it was all the things that I wasn't anticipating that turned out to be the most interesting and broadening for me. Yeah.
So had you skipped all of those classes, we wouldn't have Psychonauts or Grim Fandango or anything?
No.
Stay in school, kids. All right, we're going to skip to the next section of the monomyth, which is where the hero actually sort of finds out about some sort of quest. And you, as the hero, suddenly get the idea of Double Fine, or at least a company that you might want to run. So this is the Obi-Wan Kenobi part of the talk, where he comes along and says, "You've got to go to Eldorad."
Is Ron going to be Obi-Wan?
Eldorad. He comes into it a bit later on.
Okay.
He sort of probably is. Oh, we could just end this talk right here. So we are now on to the next slide. Thanks. Hey, the call to adventure. So at some point, I'm imagining while you're at LucasArts, you actually got the idea for, which everybody does whenever you work for a company, and it starts to get a bit long in the tooth. You start to think, I really would kind of like to move on and potentially make my own company, because clearly I could do it better than everybody else. Here's what you think.
It was peer pressure. Some of my friends goaded me into doing it.
So friends actually at Skywalker Ranch?
Yeah. No, we'd been kicked off the ranch. Well, not kicked off. Well, yeah, we were kicked off the ranch years earlier, and we were in Games had its own proper building, and it got to be about 300 people by that point. And it was, you know, after Grim Fandango, I had a couple of weird experiences where I heard a rumor that someone in the company was working on a sequel to Full Throttle, and I was like, that's not true, because that's my game. They would surely have talked to me about that. And I found out it was true. These guys were working on it, and management had told them to like work on it and don't talk to Tim about it. And I started having this weird, like, what it feels like to not own your own IP. You know, I started intellectual properties, right? IP. I was like, yeah, that's right. I don't really own that. I can't really control that. And it started this feeling that I have, like, to this day. That's one of the reasons I left to start my own company. Was the only way you're going to own what you make is to start your own company and do it yourself and fund it yourself.
So it was sort of dissatisfaction that sort of caused the idea to come into being?
Yeah, just that desire to have creative control over, you know, because now, you know, people ask me, it's a very common thing on Twitter, is like, why don't you do a sequel to Grim Fandango, or you know, why can't I play Grim Fandango on the Xbox? And it's like, I don't know. I have no control over that. I wish I could. The odds of them doing something with it are very slim, so nothing would probably ever happen. It's like, I wish I could just go in and steal that at night.
And what was the line from this morning? Every answer to every question you've got is, you've got to ask George Lucas.
You've got to go talk to George Lucas.
Got to go talk to George.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about
Although as I get older, I look more and more like him, so I'm just going to start, put on a red plaid shirt, I bet, grease back my hair. I think I could actually just go in and say, why don't you give all your games to Tim Schafer?
You've got so many people who would support that exact thing and vouch for you as George Lucas.
This isn't going to be on the internet, is it?
No.
That'll blow my whole plan if I do that.
Kill him, they'll say.
And also get rid of Jar Jar. Cheap shot.
Cheap shot. No one likes the Binks. So Ron Gilbert and Dave Grossman were your two sort of partners in crime to start with. They were your writing buddies. Did they know about the secret plan to jump ship?
They jumped ship way before me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Ron left when we were first starting Day of the Tentacle. He kind of left this 3-page design document and was like, okay, see you later. Good luck with that sequel. And he left.
Just got to get something out of my car.
He formed Humongous, and he went up to Seattle and started making adventure games for kids.
Oh, nice.
And Dave worked for a little while. After Day of the Tentacle, Dave worked for a little bit longer, and then he also left and was kind of independent games consultant. He's now at Telltale. So I was like, that was kind of that feeling, like, you know, the last day of school, like last day of high school, I was hanging out with my friends, but then I'm such a nerd, you know, I'd hang out. I was the kind of guy that would hang out in the science teacher's office because that's how cool I was. So I went to go say goodbye to my chemistry teacher, and I ended up hanging out there and talking about stuff. And then when I left, everyone was gone. And I was walking down the hallways, and at our school, for some reason, everyone just opened up their lockers and threw their books and papers on the floor and left.
What kind of
school
did you go to?
So it's a bad school. And we just walking through the hallways and everybody being gone and all the papers on the floor, and I hadn't seen anyone or say goodbye to anybody. And that's what LucasArts felt like in 1998. It was just like, where's everybody? They all left. Ron's gone. Peter Chan, Steve Purcell, and all those people had just
felt like a weird relationship with the science teacher.
I think maybe I stayed here too long.
Mm-hmm.
But the science teacher would have been Grim Fandango.
Did you wound up in there?
It's just take this to the end. Let's take this metaphor all the way to the. Yeah.
So when the idea sort of first launched itself into your head, what was the original vision for the company? Were you thinking, I'm going to make my own LucasArts of that size? Were you going to go on a farm? A film farm?
Yeah, I'm going to start a film farm. The original idea was just to make up our own intellectual properties and make games about them. And there was, in the year we started, 2000, like everyone was very optimistic about everything. The .com boom was going crazy, and we were all, and the webisodes, remember webisodes? Like web cartoons were big, so it was like, well, we might make webisodes or games and all this stuff. We'll just make tons of stuff, and it got a little more focused later on.
Nice. So we'll talk about that later on, but we're not up to that stage yet of our monomyth. We're so structured here.
Monomyth, oh my God.
The monomyth.
I think it's just not true. You know, American Indians have no flood myth.
Flood story.
Okay, let's talk about that.
If you boil it down far enough, it just breaks.
The monolith is just a great collection of things that do tend to work when you're telling a story. But I don't.
You can hack it in, which is exactly what I did for this talk. I'm like, I don't know, mentor. We'll just hack that guy in. We'll get to that in a second. But we're up to the. Thanks for your confidence in that thing as well.
Remember, we're being broadcast out into that square outside.
Oh yeah, actually.
Is that still going on? Or did you just go out there and it's like, there's no one out here, let's not turn this TV on?
So if we point down like this and look mean, we'll freak out people out there.
If anyone's out there in the square, woo!
And we can do things like, when we're on YouTube, we can point to the side where there is stuff.
Yeah. Check out that awesome spaceship.
Whoa. We're going to move on to the next slide now, if we can, which is now many heroes, they are, as part of this sort of monomyth that doesn't exist, according to Tim and most other people, the hero often refuses the call. So if you imagine in Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, he's like, I'd love to come with you on this thing. I really want to hang out with my mates in space, but I've got to sort of do this thing
I
with
gotta
my
go
uncle.
to Tashi Station and get power converters.
There's so many power converters there that I haven't got yet. I haven't got the whole set. And I've got to actually stay here with my uncle and aunt on the farm before they get 10-inch charcoal.
When did I do that?
When did they what?
When did I do that?
When did you do that? Oh, this is just what I'm gonna ask. You tell me.
See,
At
this is
what
where it
point?
all breaks down. I never
Yeah,
did that. I never refused the call to action, Craig.
So the point that you thought Double Fine is go. Or did it actually have a name at that earliest stage? Really, just like Brutal Legend, the name came first.
No, I have this notebook. Like on the first day I was opening it, we were writing down a whole bunch of just name ideas. It was like Double Extra, Neato, and then just like Fine, Special, like just strange logos, little doodles of logos and stuff like that. And the Golden Gate Bridge has a sign on it that says slow to 45 double fine zone, meaning you'll get a ticket that's twice as expensive as normal. And I always thought when I was in high school that would be a great name for a band, because everyone who drove into San Francisco would think that you'd bought this really amazingly expensive billboard declaring all of San Francisco a double fine zone. And
It sounds like the sort of.
I got to that age where I was like, I think I'm not actually going to start a band. I might not actually be a rock star. I might end up just doing this.
That must have been a hard
instead.
day.
That was a tough day. Although I still have some ideas for. Okay, never mind.
Do you actually, in one of the back of videos, you play? The introductory one, you play the drums really badly. But do you actually play the drums not badly?
I have that. That is my drum set.
So you actually play?
And I can't really. I mean, play is a strong word. I can hit them. I have hit them.
That's most of drumming.
A lot of people think that. Some people thought that was actually me doing that solo in the beginning, but that's like. I think that's from Bill and Ted. I think that's like it's totally like that's why it cuts to me, and I'm doing the last cymbal hit. And
I actually
not
thought
me.
that was you as well. I feel like such a fool now.
Really?
Yes. Yes, I feel like a fool.
I mean, I bet I could do that if I tried.
Sure.
If I really put
How
my,
hard can it be?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just. You've blown me out of the water with your absolute non-refusal of any
I
call.
refused the call of your talk.
You refused my refusal of the call.
I did put off starting a company for a long time because that pressure is often there. And I remember being hung up on things like, I don't want to figure out how to buy copy paper and like who cleans the bathrooms. I just want to make games. Like I don't want to like, just want to figure out my game, and I don't know. These things seem insurmountable, and then you start a company and you're like, it's not that hard.
But they do take a lot of time. The ordering of
Cleaning
things,
the bathroom.
the fixing of the bathroom. The bathroom is always a problem, as you know.
So I put it off, and then I just did it.
Let's just kick it straight to the next slide, since there was no refusal of the call. The mentor part of the monomyth is the person that you go to for advice, clearly, because it's a mentor. That's all in the name, really. And they potentially give you some sort of weapon to use. In Star Wars, it was Obi-Wan giving the lightsaber. In Lord of the Rings, they give you the sword that was broken and blah, blah, blah. And in this one, they do something special. So we'll play the clip and see your version of a lightsaber.
Oh, this game. That's me, just like me. I'm like going down the screen.
You finally made it. It's an honor to finally meet you in person, sir. I thought I recognized you in my dream, but I couldn't be sure. Now that I see you in your element, there's no doubt. You're Fort Cruller, the greatest leader the Psychonauts ever had.
Well, you shouldn't believe everything you read in True Psychic Tales magazine.
Dialogue tree.
I'd better go. Lots of work to do.
Good luck, Rasputin.
Thanks. I'll need it.
Don't worry, I'll be right here with you, inside your head.
My head?
Yep, I want to keep my eye on you, son, so I'm going to be a psychic stowaway inside your noggin. If you ever want to make me appear, you can do it with this special device.
Is that a piece of bacon?
Oh, yeah, I just love bacon. I smell that stuff and I can't help it. I drop everything and come running.
Okay. Do you have like a little baggie or something I can put this in?
You get a move on or I'll eat that right here.
Oh, the bacon.
Your
Yeah,
lightsaber is bacon.
Everyone does love bacon. You can't go wrong. So then later in the game, you can summon Ford Cruller out of your mind by holding the bacon next to your ear.
And he just pops out of your
And he
head.
pops out of your ear. And that comes from my wife telling me how to get rid of tapeworms.
Oh, I've heard this story.
Not that...
Not near your ear, though.
I never had tapeworms, just to make that clear. She wasn't helping me out. But she said, you know, you can get rid of tapeworms if you have tapeworm in your stomach. You open your mouth, and you hold a piece of bacon in front of your mouth, and the tapeworm smells the bacon and pops up in your back of your throat like, hey, where's the bacon? And then you grab it and you pull it out. Is that true?
Has that ever
Anyone?
worked? Has anyone ever done?
Tapeworms.
No.
You guys have everything down in Australia. You probably have a tapeworm that.
We've got a redback tapeworm.
Redback
and
tapeworm,
and a
yeah.
drop tapeworm.
Mm-hmm. But
drop tapeworm.
it's true. So it's a little educational, that game.
So mentors. I just want to talk about, like, clearly you've got your Ron Gilberts and your Dave Grossmans.
Mm-hmm.
How much did they mentor you back in the day, and how much did you mentor them?
Well, yeah, Dave was a year older than me or so. He'd been to grad school a little bit, so he had some things to teach
He
me.
knew stuff.
Yeah, he knew stuff. And, well, yeah, that was one of the great things that another lucky step for me was having someone like Ron and a lot of the other, the people like Hal Barwood and Noah Falstein and at LucasArts, you know, it was a little bit, this is going to sound bad if I say it's like the Mafia, but like a friendlier version of the Mafia. But the thing was, it was like Ron did kind of pick Dave and I, and we were kind of like made men. Like he was kind of like, these are my guys. I'm going to teach them what to do, and no one can fire them because they're there with me. Wow. So kind of, I assume that conversation went on. Ron never told me that he said that. He probably was like, yeah, I'll take. Yeah, don't fire them. I'll take them.
Because if you keep a horse's head next to your ear, that tapeworm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Ron always had a lot of good advice and helpful things, and just it's great when you're writing. It's only just a little piece of advice. Like I was really stuck. I had to write the villager dialogue on Monkey Island. I was writing these like, little lemon head and all the weird villagers, and I was like, what do villagers talk about? We couldn't figure it out. And as I was leaving the office, Ron was just said, maybe they're cannibals, but they're like really health conscious cannibals or something. And that was just, that idea was like the impetus for all the dialogue. You're just like, oh, that's really easy. Now I can just write that. Because my family was really obsessed with like low fat diets at the time. And so I just took all the dialogue from my dinner table and used it in the game. He started a company, you know, so he was very helpful when I started my company and talked. But we also had like Hal Barwood, who was he had done some films. He'd been like a writer producer on Dragon Slayer and Corvette Summer. We like to talk about Corvette Summer. I don't know if anyway. He had lots of advice about writing and stuff because early on there's a phase in your I think when you're writing, there's, you know, when you're a junior writer, there's this phase where you're still kind of in love with everything you write, and you get mad when someone tells you to edit it. You know, it was this tough, like we had to cut the games down because you always get the editing phase. You write a whole bunch of stuff and it's always too long, and they have to go back and edit. And it's really hard to like cut your own stuff for a while. And then I remember Hal's he talked to me about this metaphor about a spider web when you're writing. It's like, you know, spider web, sometimes you see it if it's kind of loose. If you cut some of the threads of the spider web, it doesn't get more unstable. It actually gets tighter because the threads around it take more of the weight and it gets more sturdy. And
did that work, or did you just hate people cutting your lines?
No, I started to get really, really into editing and became kind of, as you get more experience in writing, you get more ruthless about editing your own stuff, and you realize that's just as equal to the first part of writing. You know, the good editing is just as important as blurting out those ideas in the first place. So
myself, usually with games, when you have to actually crunch text down to fit on screen, or you have to crunch it down even further. Like Mass Effect is amazing for crunching an entire conversation down to about 4 words that you can pick that one, and then it'll go on to the larger conversation.
Yeah.
But when you finally cut it down, you realised how much rubbish you would have had in there to start off with if you'd left it as it is, all sort of overly fluffy.
If I was smarter, I would quote that actual writer. Who was it? Oscar Wilde. Someone talks about how it's easy to write long and hard. I didn't have time to write a short letter. Yeah. What's that quote? That's a great quote. Someone look that up. You got the internet. I would have written you a short letter, but I didn't have time. Something like that.
Wrote you a long one.
Kids today, we don't know anything. Old people today, I guess.
Yes.
I keep forgetting that I'm really old.
Damn them all. So Ron Gilbert was your, as well as a creative mentor, he was your sort of business mentor.
And then I hacked him in the middle with a sword. Right? That's what happens?
That's what happens.
Oh, no, Darth does that.
You've read ahead.
Yeah, that was the LucasArts management.
Then he cuts his arm off and he's,
Mm-hmm.
There's something about a father figure in there. We'll get to that. Thanks. We'll move on to the next section now that you've mentored.
Am I jumping ahead?
No, a little. It's okay. They're here to see you.
Mm-hmm.
The next section is actually the interesting part where you actually start. You've gone from your ideas of Double Fine, you've gone from getting your mentors, getting your team together, which we'll get to in a sec. And this is now the crossing the threshold part. So if we kick the slide there, crossing the threshold. So this is actually the point. Usually in the monomyth There's one final guardian, which I hope there is one, or else this whole thing's just gone to hell.
Is this when I turn off the computer and turn off the computer, Luke?
Turn off the computer.
Luke.
Oh no, that comes later.
Oh God.
Oh,
okay.
you're so far ahead. You should have studied this.
Editing.
Editing. This is the part where you're about to start Double Fine. So actually, you've got one last sort of threshold guardian type thing, or something holding you back from actually starting it. I was wondering what that might have been, whether it was a financial thing, or like did you actually leave LucasArts?
Yeah.
Right, and go from one day in LucasArts to the next day in Double Fine, or was there a bit of a gap? How did it work?
Kind of, but Double Fine was just me in my apartment, in my bathrobe, and flip-flops, and a phone, and like calling people.
Questions. How many pajamas were involved at the start of Double Fine?
Oh, sorry.
Lots of pajamas.
Trying to make it hotter.
Pajamas.
Really skimpy bathrobe is really hot. No, we it's just that kind of optimism and lack of knowledge that just led me to just quit and say, I'll figure this out. I'll start a company. And the big lucky break we got was that the Xbox got launched right then, and I was at GDC, and I was giving a talk about character design, and they just announced the Xbox at that GDC, and I was like, I should get on that thing. That sounds new and cool. How would I ever get on that? And Ed Fries from Microsoft happened to be at my talk and was like, hey, we should talk. And then we signed with Microsoft, which worked out.
This is the cruisy life you're talking about, where everything just happens.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, just starting a company. There's an Xbox.
Well, it's just one of those things where if you knew how hard it was, but we made it. We lucked out.
Did? I don't spoil the end.
Oh wait, well, there's a lot of stuff that happens.
Stuff happens before you make it.
Yeah.
So
we did pitch the game a lot. I pitched to everybody, and Microsoft was most excited. And yeah.
So did you have a game to pitch at that GDC? You'd existed in your bathrobe for a little while before that.
Yeah, kind of. For the last year after Grim Fandango, I worked for a year at Lucas making this spy game. I had this space game that was going to be like spies in space, like kind of a cross between 2001 and Shaft. I can talk about it now, except for it's owned by George Lucas, so maybe I shouldn't talk about it. But it was just shag rugs in space like Barbarella. It was going to be great. So, and I had this thing in it where you would solve puzzles by taking an item and you'd meditate on the item, and you'd go into this vision quest inside your own head, and you'd look at the item, because I always believe that your brain does know more things than you think you know in your conscious brain. There's things that you know that you don't realize. So he goes on this quest deep inside to find out clues and open up objects and find clues that help him in the real world. And I was pitching that to people around Lucas, and then I remember a guy came to my office and said, tell me more about that game where the guy goes into other people's heads. And I was like, no, he doesn't go into other people's heads. He goes into his. Wait a second.
Wait.
That's just one of those weird examples of where ideas come from, like misunderstandings and hearing someone wrong. Like sometimes when someone says a great idea and you hope you heard them wrong because it sounds like a great idea and you can steal it, unless you heard them right. And you did mean that. Okay.
You're just dumb like the rest of them. Not you, sir.
But then I should probably say I ran out of the building and wrote it down. I didn't write it down inside of the George Lucas office because then he would own it.
Because then he would own it. Mm-hmm. So we're going to run another clip just for the heck of it because we're up to the belly of the whale stage. It gets a bit dark. We skip all the good bit of Psychonauts gets in production for quite a while. Yeah. We're up to the cancellation part. Mm-hmm. So in the monomyth, the belly of the whale is where the hero sort of gets literally sometimes eaten by a whale, something that would kill normal people, and then appears out again, and people realize they're destined for something greater. And your belly of the whale, which we'll get to in a second, is when the publisher pulled out of that. But we'll talk about that in a sec, and we'll play the clip for Belly of the Whale, if that's cool.
In his sleep. So he's really kidnapping children and stealing their brains to make weapons. Yes! Isn't that great? What? How is that great? Because this is an honest-to-goodness psychic emergency. And Sasha's not here. He left on some official Psychonauts business. Mia left a note saying the same thing. Lily, a deranged madman is building an army of psychic death tanks to take over the world. And there's no one who can stop him, except for you and me. Oh my god! Let's make out! What? Sorry, I'm just so excited. Since you showed up, Raz, things are so much more exciting. Sinister death plots, mad scientists, hideous monsters. Make out? How long have I ignored what this camp had to offer? Everything's new to me now, thanks to you.
I mean, look at this flower.
You mean like kiss?
How many years have I been coming here, and I've never even noticed a cool flower like this before? Oh no! You didn't just hit my boyfriend!
Lily!
That is hard to watch because the water effects, we never got in the water effects on that last part.
You always see the bad
I
things,
can't believe
don't
you
you?
picked that.
You
That's
always see the
terrible.
bad.
That's how I give demos. I always point out the things that are missing and the bugs.
I've been giving demos with some people from, where was it? It's not about me, this talk. Let's talk about something else. So yeah, Belly of the Whale. So Double Fine has gone into the whale because suddenly I'm just using this metaphor far too much, aren't I?
Yeah.
Thanks. And so, which would kill most companies, and has killed most companies where people have lost their project, and this was your only project, and everything was sort of invested in this one thing, and then the publisher pulls out. That must have sucked.
That was really a opportunity for some terror and panic. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people in the games industry have had games canceled, and that was all we've been working on. And at that point, it was 2004, I believe, so that we've been working on this thing for 4 years, and really crunching on it too, and put a lot of ourselves into it. And everything had been, it had already been rough with the publisher, and then it was getting better. And everything's fine. We had this big thing. It was called the 3-month fun project, and it was like it was the opposite of fun, which was like we really need you to prove that the game is really fun right now, and you have 3 months to do it. And I was like, but I got to get all these. The systems it's gonna take another 3 months. And so we did this thing. We made the Black Velvetopia level, and that was our first level where things started really coming together, and crunched on it. And we worked really hard. And we the game it did, like games do this sometimes. They go from like not being fun for a long time. All of a sudden, it was just a lot more fun. We finished it, and they came down, and they looked at it, and they had meeting after meeting, and they're like, okay, we're having a meeting right now, and we'll call you later to tell you whether or not your game is canceled. And we're having this meeting. And
How long did you have to wait between that?
It was like a weekend or something horrible. And I remember I went and watched the movie SWAT to distract myself. It was terrible. It's bad. And so I finally got the call, and they said, we really like the progress you made, and it's really, really great, so you're not canceled. And then like a month later, that guy left the company, and the new guy came in and canceled it.
That's just not fair.
Yeah, it's tricky. Yeah, because when you have a relationship with the publisher, you don't really have a relationship with a publisher. You have a relationship with individuals at the publisher, and if you have a relationship with like one individual and that individual leaves, it's like having no relationship with them at all. So I've learned not to just have one relationship with the publisher.
Sounds dirty. So anyway, how long was it between getting the funding cut and you eventually, just to have the spoiler, Psychonauts got made, and you found Majesco to take? How long was that?
I would have to look at my notebook to see how many months that was, but I feel like it. I remember we went to E3 with a dev kit, and we're pitching it. We pitched to everybody, and they all passed on the game, and so that must have been, when was E3? June, right? And so the whole summer was spent pitching that game, and I had the demo, and I remember, I'm telling this because it has local flavor. I saw some of my friends, I think it was Blue Tongue, some Australian developers, friends of mine, and their project had also been canceled by Microsoft. And I was like, well, how do you have this awesome booth in E3 where you're demoing your game, because it's not even signed yet? And they're like, oh, the Australian government. And I was like, Australian government. And they're like, can we see your game? I was like, yeah, sure. So I did the thing that I do whenever I'd bring in my dev kit, I put it down, I'd unplug their dev kit, and I plugged it in, and it went pop! And I smelled this smell that I hadn't smelled since I was like 9 years old, which is my train set melting. What is that? Oh, that's my dev kit melting, because that's an Australian power supply.
240 volt converter.
Yeah. And I've always hated Australia. No. And I vowed someday I would come back and get my revenge.
Has all your stuff been popping? Has your iPod exploded?
We had to have someone fly down and bring a new dev kit the next day. And it was sad watching those guys who were getting the demo from me look at me like, oh gosh, like they could tell how painful it was. And I was like, it's fine, you guys, it's fine, it's okay, I'm going to go now, okay? I'm just going to go because I hate when people see me cry, and I left. And we brought the new dev kit down and did more pitching. And we ended up hearing weeks later from Majesco, not because we had pitched to them. We actually never met.
Oh, wow.
We hadn't pitched to them at all, but they had mailed the info line of our website. We're like, hey, how about us? We'll publish it. And we're like, didn't know much about them, and we started talking to them more and more seriously, and they turned out to work out. They published the game, and they were very supportive of it, and they were the last people, and we got to the point before we heard from them, we had extended ourselves. I had taken out like a personal loan, and because I was really sure we were going to re-sign. It always seemed like we were about to sign, and it was a really, really big loan that I would have been paying back the rest of my life. And then we were going to get another loan from a publisher who was really about to publish us, and then they backed out at the last minute, and we had no more money. And I had to stand up in front of the company and tell them that we were shutting down. And I made that speech and told them that we were shutting down, and went through all the details of how we would do it and what options people had. And you can get your resumes together on our computers. It was just really just not a good day. It was a really terrible day. No. And then it was like that afternoon, we got the call from Majesco saying they wanted to sign it.
So you were just messing with your peeps.
Ouch.
He does the most horrible things to us.
You're
all fired.
Yeah. And then we published it. And then we put it in a humble indie bundle and made money off of it this year.
So is it selling better now than it ever has, or did it sell?
We've made more money off of it this year than ever, because we are now the publisher of it. The original contract expired, and we are now the self-publishing that game, and we can now upgrade it and invest in, like, put achievements in it and fix the bugs and keep it running, and so that's a good feeling.
Nice.
Yeah.
No one gets the payback that many years after release. That's nice. We're going to skip forward to the Road of
Payback.
Trials.
Wait, that guy that canceled it is still out there.
Is he?
Yeah, I know.
Has he done anything worthwhile since?
I know his name. No.
Do you track him on Metacritic? Low score.
No.
Next stage is the Road of Trials, which is where the hero has to learn things as he goes along, things that he didn't know at the start. There he is right there, with two of the people who teach you things in Psychonauts. What stuff didn't you know to start with? Like you had programming down, you had game design down, you had writing down, but to run a company and do all the stuff that you do was big. How much stuff did you learn as you went along?
So many things I learned, like just your conception of what it, I just thought, what I thought was going to be important about starting a company. Like in the very beginning, I was making everyone's desks by hand, because I was like, a lot of, other friends I had startups, like that was the cool thing. We're all here together sanding and staining these desks, which is a huge waste of time. Like you're really the least qualified and most expensive desk maker you could probably get as the president of your company. So, but it felt fun, if you've ever been in a startup, like having that first warehouse office. We had this, first we were in this, it was a clog shop. We were in this clog shop in San Francisco that was supposedly haunted. And
sounds like a euphemism, really.
Yeah.
Clog
shop.
Clog shop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
in a bathrobe.
And then we got kicked out of there because the person subletting us didn't have permission to sublet to us, so we got kicked out. And we moved to this warehouse, which was unheated and had no air conditioning, and had rats that would come at night.
The rats.
And it was whenever it rained, the toilets would back up human waste into the offices,
which made the rats happy.
Don't complain. Yeah. It did. Yeah, the rats love that. But I mean, it was terrible. I feel bad telling that story because it's just so gross. But like, it was like in between the desks and the kitchen was this little hallway. You had to like jump over this puddle. It's so embarrassing telling that. And we were paying like $4 a square foot, like .com rates for that place. $4 a square foot a month for this place. And then the .com crash happened, and we were like, we're out of here. And we got a place that was $1 a square foot. And it was cheaper, and it was beautiful, and we're still there today.
So that's the very, very place that we see in all the videos.
The games industry in San Francisco benefited a lot from the .com crash, in that there are all these brick warehouses that would have been torn down, but the .com people came in, they made them all nice and retrofitted them for earthquakes, and then went out of business and left all their Aeron chairs and Herman Miller's furniture. And then we all moved in, like all these companies moved into the South of Market area and took it over and had cheap rent.
And nice. And no rats. And no rivers of poo. Are we allowed to say rivers of poo?
The way you say that makes it sound kind of fun.
Yay! River of poo! We're going to start racing through the last stages, because by crux, it's a longer long thing. We don't have much time. So we're going to scoot to the temptation slide, please. And in the I couldn't see much temptation in your games, and so we just used the milkman, because who's not tempted by milk? So I don't know what I'm saying. Stretch. This is where when things get tough, the hero's tempted to leave the quest. And I'm just wondering, at what stage, like, when things were a bit dark, did Double Fine ever get approached to do stuff that you didn't want to do? Did you get a Dora the Explorer kind of license thing that they said?
Hey, my daughter loves Dora.
I should have used another example. The River of Pooh game.
This would be the part of the story where, like, some big company came and offered us millions of dollars to buy our company. Well, that didn't happen.
Didn't happen?
Yeah, it didn't happen.
No one offered you any games to make, any licensed properties?
Yeah, we do. When you do when you have a company and you're in town, people are like, publishers will kind of like spread out an offer to, like, hey, we need someone to port the sound system of this dumb game, and well, not dumb game, but like something you don't want to do, and they'll just call out everybody and they'll find out who will do it for the cheapest. And I just always felt it was not in our best interest to take that kind of work, because it seems like you just start down this road of doing other people's ideas forever, and it's be hard to get off that.
Taking the money. Was it tempting? Because we're on the temptation slide.
It was tempting when we're almost, it was like some of that would come in when we were trying to re-sign Psychonauts, and we were like, oh, let's take that, let's do it. And do
you know what it was? Do you remember the game? Can you say?
No.
No to one of those
but
questions.
we've been offered like nice, good licenses for TV shows that we liked and stuff, and it just always felt like it would not be, every studio I think has a specialty, and I think ours is just not doing licensed games. I don't mean it sound like our strength is not. I think that's a different skill, and I think I learned that at LucasArts, because like the guys who made the Star Wars games, that's a different skill of being able to take George Lucas's world and make it exciting again, and tell stories within that framework. That's a whole special skill that I just didn't think I would be very good at, and is why I never did it. And I didn't dislike Star Wars then, and and I have respect for that skill, and I think that's great. And it's just easier for me to make stuff up from scratch, because it's just a different way of thinking. That's just easier for me. So we refused the temptation of those offers. There you go. Yeah.
What skills do you have that you could have actually leaned on? If the horrible thing happened and Double Fine collapsed, what would you have done as a job?
That's probably why we never gave up on it, because I could never think of something else to do. It just, part of it is just the embarrassment of like that company going under. I was like, no, I can't go tell people that happened. We have to make this work. We have to do it. So you never
work as a junior designer at some other company and feel sad every day?
Well, I'd worked as a junior designer at another at Lucas for years, and had done that. I mean, that was definitely where we felt this huge risk, because if we had gotten canceled, if we had not re-signed Psychonauts, then no one would have ever known about it. It would have been, this game that never happened, and all for like 4 years had just been for absolutely nothing. All that time away from our families, and all that, strain on our hearts and livers and whatever. It was just for nothing, because the game never came out, and that was just, something you just couldn't let happen.
And then someone would remake it like Duke Nukem and make it into something bad.
No, because we owned our IP, see?
Nice. The next stage is the exact opposite of temptation, which is the divine assistance, which is people come in who really desperately want to keep you on the quest. And I was just wondering who helped you out in those times?
Who helped us out when we were in our... Let's see, we had...
How did you keep morale together? How did you help each other out as well?
Yeah, the team was... just hearing that story about jumping over human feces on the way to the kitchen, right? Just tells you something about the team, is that those people are still working at Double Fine today. Like, they're just so committed and dedicated, and have such a great spirit. That's just like what saved us all this time, is just the dedication of our team, and their stick-to-itiveness. And, we've had some, like when I talked about that big loan that I took out, that was from like another person in the games industry who helped us out, and that, and you find that a lot in the games industry, is that it's other people like you who have made it, and they often are looking to help out someone else who was in the situation that they were in a few years ago. And so it's a really great industry in that way, is that you'll often find people are willing to just help out. It's not really that cutthroat of an industry in terms of other developers, right? So we've gotten help. I've often gotten help from other developers along the way. Just yeah.
You haven't burned any bridges.
What?
You
I
seem
didn't
to be
say
friendly with everybody. Oh, you've burned bridges. Oh, that's what I remember. You called someone a bad name on Twitter one time, as I recall.
I did, yeah. I mean, I've been, sued, and that's kind of a bridge. It's hard to.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and yeah, I called people names in the press, and that burned a bridge. But you learn. I mean, really early on, I remember learning how you really can't burn bridges in the games industry because it's so small. I had friends whose company, they left Lucas because they didn't like this one person, and then they were pitching their game, and they went to a publisher and they're pitching it, and in that room, in the pitch is the guy, he just gotten a new job at that company that they were banking on selling their game to. So it's you just really can't make any enemies in the games industry because they'll just be there the next day at some important meeting approving your project.
Or not approving your project. Mm-hmm. We're going to go to the supreme ordeal right now, which is the, if you're thinking monomyth, if we go back to our Star Wars thing, we're in the Death Star now, we're in the trench, Darth Vader's bearing down, and the supreme ordeal. Just to go a little bit darker again, this is where Brutal Legend 2 got canned, and that was in the bag.
This is a dark movie.
This is a dark, who's
Yeah.
telling this story? So hopefully we'll get to the bit where you're successful.
Yeah.
We'll have time for that.
The laughs.
The last bit.
Mm-hmm.
How dark was that? Because this was not coming back. This was not like Psychonauts where it could come back. Brutal Legend 2 seemed to be gone.
Yeah. I mean, you skipped the one where Brutal Legend got canceled, and we had to re-sign that.
Totally.
It's a really badly structured movie because it has just a lot of lowest points.
Editing. It's all about the editing.
Yeah. So yeah, at the end of Brutal Legend, we did think we were making Brutal Legend 2, and we were designing that, and we were putting off. We were like, can we get some money for this DLC that we're making? We're like, yeah, just put that in the Brutal Legend 2 deal. And we're like, okay, and that money will come, and it didn't come, and we'd already spent all our money. So we're like, yoinks, not again. But we had this thing called Amnesia Fortnite, where we had, almost for fun, the first time, just taking a break from the game we were working on and made these prototypes, and split the company into 4 teams, and they all made a game in 2 weeks. And we did that a few times, so we had 9 games, and we picked our 4 favorite and took them on the road and got them all signed and started making those games instead of getting another big game signed. One, because I didn't have an idea for another big game because I was working on Brutal Legend 2. And also, I did feel this thing closing in on us where making bigger and bigger games, bigger budgets, it gets harder and harder to do original IP, do original ideas, and go to a publisher and be like, why don't you give me $20 million and I have this really fun pet idea that I've been working on, and it's really it still probably could be done, and we managed to do it with Brutal Legend, but I just saw that getting harder and harder as time was going by, that people would not want to invest in those new crazy ideas, or they'd want to change them and make them more commercial or less interesting in some way, and so going to smaller games let us make the games as in the same way that we wanted.
Which is cool. As part of those 9 games, did you put one in?
Not in those first 2 Amnesia Fortnights, no.
How many Amnesia Fortnights have you had?
We had another one.
Did you?
We're trying to do them every year. So we did one last year around Halloween.
Cool.
Yeah.
Any promising stuff? Could you just announce to everyone all of the games that you're about to make?
Yeah, when I just announced them. We did get some things out of there that we're working on, yeah.
Yeah?
It's
awesome.
Pretty much, it's where a lot of our project ideas come from now, is this prototyping process where we just give someone a shot at coming up with a cool prototype in a couple weeks.
We just must keep the team together in a joyous bit of morale.
Mm-hmm. It is a great thing for morale to have this really focused, concentrated time where you all try and make a game in a certain amount of time. Because when you're working on a game for 2 years, it just seems like everything is infinitely far away. We'll get around to that feature. We'll finish that. We'll do that in the next few months. But when you have just 2 weeks, you almost pretty much have to be wrapping everything up then. And so you just try and get one thing cool. Let's just get one thing working and cool, and which is a really good game design discipline thing to do anyway, instead of thinking so big and grand all the time. And
just putting the success into the staff's own hands is really cool. Mm-hmm. And must be just a wonderful thing.
And it's like Teacher's Week for me. I can just take off and we'll wander around, look how hard everybody's working, laugh.
Sweet. We're running out of time, so we'll scoot to the Rescue from Without. Rescue from Without. This is where in the Death Star trench, Luke's about to die. Everything's bad, and then Han Solo comes out of nowhere, says "Wahoo," and then shoots Darth Vader's wing, and off he goes. And so he gets rescued from without.
Or not Obi-Wan.
And not it. Yeah. No. I went with the Millennium Falcon there because it's cooler than a dead old man.
Mm-hmm. That never happened.
Hmm.
I can't
But
think
anyway,
of.
look at all the people, because that's the
Yeah.
this is the Rescue From Without is the Kickstarter deal.
Oh,
We're
was that we
all-
there yet? We're
Hey.
already at the end. Okay. Yes.
So Kickstarter is the entire internet became Han Solo in my version of the story, or Obi-Wan in yours, and rescued you from without. That must have been nice.
That was nice. I mean, we weren't. I mean, the nice thing was we were not, for once, not in that desperate situation where we were running out of money. We had projects going, and we were just thinking about. We got approached by a documentary crew that wanted to make a documentary about our company, and they kickstarted their last documentary, which is about Minecraft and Mojang. So they wanted to fund it that way. And we're like, yeah, Kickstarter, sure. We didn't know much about it. And then we're like, well, what? How will we get approval from the publisher to show the footage in the documentary? It's like, well, let's make our own game in the Kickstarter. We get a little extra money to make this game that we can make a documentary about. So it was really just an excuse to make a documentary. And then it started to sound more interesting. I was like, wait a second, if we made an adventure game, like this would be a chance to get in, like, because this could be anything we wanted. This could be any game we wanted. This is an opportunity to do something we couldn't do normally. So let's try and do this, make an adventure game, which is something that people are always saying, mailing us like, why don't you guys do an adventure game? I'll give you my money. That thing that we showed in our pitch video was right out of like our forums, And so it seemed like a great chance to do that. And then when we announced it, it just seemed to touch some nerve and excite people, and everyone became this happening, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun to do that.
So you asked for 400,000, you got 3.3 million. I've
Yeah.
always wanted to ask,
2.4
what was that meeting
million.
like? 3.4 million.
Outside of, yeah.
What's the meeting like when you have to say, how do we spend this money? I'd love to be in that meeting. We've got too much money to spend.
That's the funny thing about money and getting more money is you find ways to spend it instantly, and you are instantly do more. I mean, because then it was no longer going to be like a small mini project. It was going to be as big as Stacking and Costume Quest and all the games we've been working on. So instantly it became this like, oh, maybe we'll have like 7 people for a year or something like that, and then all of a sudden the money was gone again. Yeah.
Did it get much bigger, the project?
It got much bigger.
Sweet.
Became a whole year bigger. Yeah.
3.4 mil big.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. Well, I reckon we'll just end on the final video, which is one of the stages that we're not really going to get to, but where you become a god. I was going to talk about the word apotheosis, which is a really cool word, but it's going to make you feel weird. So we'll just play the video for apotheosis. For
Apotheo what?
one of
Okay.
Apothe-
Oh, by the way, thanks to all the backers.
Thank you.
I'm gonna play that here. This is gonna be my sister's voice. Listen.
Top of the morning to you, ma'am.
Not him.
And good day to you, Officer O'Lungfish. How are you today?
Oh, damp and happy, can't complain. And what are you and the wee one up to on this lovely day?
Oh, just obeying the law as always. All posted directives followed to the letter.
Ah, good to hear. Not a one of us want any trouble, that's for sure. Ah! Oh, Gagalo!
Wait, so that's me, is what you're saying?
Yes, you've become Goggle.
I've become Gagalor. That's
Yeah.
nice. And that's, okay.
Apotheosis.
Yeah.
But we'll leave it there and maybe do a quick applause, then we'll get into some questions.
Quick
but
applause.
right now, thank God over here.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to throw to the audience, and I think there are microphones.
Is someone going to go out into Federation Square with a microphone and like take a question
Yeah.
from the...
Oh, that'd be
Want me
nice.
to? I
So
can do that
if
if
we're
you
doing
want.
a Google conference,
And they're
that's what someone
shivering
would
because
do.
it's cold out there. I just want to ask about something.
Just shout your questions if you're outside.
Yes, sorry, raise your hand if you have a question, and a microphone will be passed to you.
I see a guy with a microphone over
There's
there.
one down here, there's one over there, with a microphone.
Yeah.
Did you bring that?
Yes,
Nice.
I did. Considering yours and Warren Spector's wildly different approaches to game design, do you think it's impossible for you two to ever make a game together?
Or be friends.
Or be friends while doing it, yes.
I would love to. Warren, let's do it right now. Yeah.
Yes. That's on tape.
Yeah, I think, I'm sure Warren and I have actually never really even talked about it, we've never had a design debate or anything like that, because it's just mostly like probably different backgrounds, different instincts have led to different designs, but that doesn't mean that they're really, diametrically opposed. Okay, yeah, they are.
See,
But I'm such a pushover. I would just do what Warren says. He's a very convincing speaker. I don't know if you've heard him talk. We were on a radio show when someone went after him about violence in games, and I was like, oh, I'm so glad he's here to beat up this bully for me. Yeah.
Cool. I think there's a question here.
So I haven't finished Psychonauts yet. Was that a spoiler? You've had experience on a fair range of platforms. Psychonauts starting on the Xbox, and culminating with Psychonauts recently being ported to Linux, and the Double Fine Adventure coming to macOS, Linux, Android, iPhone, anything with buttons and without buttons. Do you feel that gamer attitudes and behaviors vary depending upon platform?
Yeah, I've noticed, doing our first Linux thing, I've met Linux users, which are a unique bunch. And there is definitely, you encountered hardcore fans, I guess, of any platform, whether it was Nintendo fans or Mac users. There's definitely people who are really religious about their platform. And, I think mostly you follow the same rules to make them, happy. Just try and be upfront and transparent about what you're doing. But I've never, I had this moment where I became completely platform agnostic, and it was when I bought an Atari Lynx, because I had been a really loyal Atari guy all my life. Ever since we had 2600, I had Atari 400, I had Atari 800, and Warren told me he was an Atari person too. Everyone in the the mature people in the games industry all break down to Commodore people, Apple II people, or Atari people mostly, and I think there's Sinclair people out in England. But anyway, super big, and then I finally people in the office had the Lynx, and I saw them playing Todd's Slime World or whatever the big game, and anyway, I bought one. And then it just collapsed. And no more games were released for it. And I was like, why did I buy this? And there's no games for it. And this is so frustrating to see this thing fail after and when you're an Atari fan, when you're in the 80s, it was the company seemed to always be making these mistakes and not being as big as Apple. And anyway, I got frustrated. I was like, why am I being so loyal to this company? And really, I don't care anymore. I'm just on whatever platform is working out, and whatever I care more about the games than about any individual platform. And I think at Double Fine, we definitely I've adopted that attitude too, of being what you call platform agnostic. Of just it's about the games, and we want to get them in the hands of as many people as possible, which means putting them on Linux, putting them wherever people are. But we're not religiously devoted to any particular platform. But we're tolerant of other religions.
We've got a question in the middle over here.
I also just wanted to say thank you so much for all the work, Legend.
Thank you for playing. Awesome. Thanks. The days are pretty different. Monday is kind of a meeting day. We tend to have a meeting where we get the leads of all the different projects together and talk about all the projects and how they're all going. And then we'll have a team meeting that same day where we get the entire company together in one room, and we go over all the news and what's going on. So that day just tends to all the meetings just clump around those meetings, and there's after meetings, and it's a big day of meetings. But it does help the rest of the week be. No, there's still more meetings the rest of the week, but what depends on what phase I'm in at the time in the project. So in the beginning of this game, we're working on Reds, the code name for the Kickstarter project, as you saw from episode 3, right? Hey, I'll be. I don't know why I'm making this monster claw. I'll be in my office every morning. As soon as I get in, until like 11 o'clock in the morning. So at least a solid half hour. I will sit there with my notebook and I'll just write ideas for the game, because I just find working in the morning is better for those kind of thoughts. And then I'll come out and being in my current position, I'm a creative director for the company, so I have to meet, really touch on every project and see how they're doing and see if they need anything. And there's just a lot of things that come up, like, oh, the health insurance company wants to raise our rates, and we have to have a meeting about that, and a lot of these things come up. And as time goes by, I managed to hire people to deal with that stuff for me, but I still end up in a lot of meetings, and sometimes have to leave the office and hide out in a library somewhere to get writing done. So I do a lot of writing. I don't do any programming anymore, but I'm hoping to do it on this new game, because it's an adventure game, and I remember how to program those. And every day has something different. Where I might be listening to a lot of auditions of an actor for voice, or I might be looking at demos, or we might be, there are a lot of meetings.
Every Friday, does every team get to play every other team's game on the playtest?
You mean the mandatory hour of fun?
Yes.
Was that in this talk? No, that was the earlier talk.
Mandatory hour of fun.
We have this thing I mentioned earlier, but we had this thing called the mandatory hour of fun on Fridays on Psychonauts, where we forced everyone in the company to stop working and play the game for an hour, because some of the people had not actually played our own game. And mandatory hour of fun started, and then we meet and talk about what everyone thought about the game. It turned to be really fun. And now they have so many projects, we'd be doing that all the time, and it'd take up too much time. So we have this thing called the Hofbrau. Hof is hour of fun. So it became the Hofbrau, which is basically we have all the projects just demoed in different pods, and we serve beer, and people wander around and play the games and drink beer.
Not the pizza orgy that you talked about this morning.
No, I haven't done a pizza orgy.
No.
What's that? Sounds gross. Creepy.
The
Microphone.
pizza sounds bad.
Tim, you said before that students these days have their path set out. They go to this school for some reason because it might be the best in state, etc. And you, for example, said that you sort of went with the flow, and then this is how you ended up. Do you believe that it's changed, that students need to follow these set paths these days, or is it still? Can you still go your route and go with the flow and see where it takes you?
Yeah, I mean, by the way, I remember you from the previous meeting with the kid student. Yeah. I feel weird giving that as advice, for one thing. It feels strange just saying you don't have to plan your future. I actually look back and I wonder if I could have done more things or cooler things if I had actually kind of taken control of my own destiny. Yeah, but it was really just that I had things were working out. Like I'm not answering this right. I say going with the flow, it's still keeping your eyes open for opportunities, I guess is the way that I would describe it. I was kind of looking at opportunities and just stepping into where the flow seemed to be going the fastest, you know what I mean? So I don't want to make it sound like I was just closing my eyes and floating down the river. You're still just kind of stepping, it's like maybe what's the metaphor is like being in traffic and changing in the right lane. I was definitely looking for opportunities when they came up, and was hopefully ready to meet. Like when I saw that job listing for LucasArts, I was ready for it. So I think, I could still say it would still work. It seems irresponsible to advise people not to plan their futures.
And that actual job application is downstairs for people. You can actually see it framed. It's at the LucasArts, the adventure game.
That was me compensating for blowing the phone interview, because I had accidentally confessed to pirating their games.
And you still got the job.
That's because I love Ball Blazer, and I was telling him how much I loved it, but I used the term Ball Blaster, and he was like, "Oh, that's what it was called when it was pirated." I was like, "Yeah, oh, okay."
Just go back to programming.
I was like, I had nothing to lose, so I did that resume where I made a text adventure that you'd play.
Which is awesome. And it's downstairs. There's another question in the middle. Oh.
Hello.
Sorry. I'm a big fan of Monkey Island, Day of the Tentacle, Grim Fandango. And so in the book, Rogue Leader's the story of LucasArts.
On sale downstairs in the stores.
It's actually a really good book. But the first half details sort of the innovative period at LucasArts, where there was lots of interesting stuff going on, crazy ideas and all of that business. And the second half of the book seems to, chronicle the intrusion of the broader sort of Lucasfilm IP as it, well, from my opinion, sort of started to strangle the business. And I just want to know if when you were there, you felt that was inevitable and it was just going to be a matter of time before it started to happen, and how that made the people there feel.
Well, that's a good question. The interesting thing is when we first started at Lucas, we were actually prevented from using the LucasArts IP by George, and no one really knows authoritatively why this is, and a lot of us thought it was because he wanted to sell the company eventually. Like he sold what became Pixar. It originally was part of Lucasfilm Computer Division, and so we thought he was going to sell us, and so I don't want to read George's mind, but I do kind of, but I kind of also don't want to read his mind. But he was saying that he wanted us to stand on our own feet, like make a company that is solid on its own. So you have to create your own IP, and we were like, fine, okay, pirates, let's do it. And it really was a great period of just this period where you have to create your own IP. Like it was never even questioned. Like, oh, we're gonna make a new game. Okay, we got to come up with a totally new world and characters. Okay, let's do it. And it was a really great creative time and attracted a lot of creative people to the company. And then the first time someone said, hey, maybe we should ask permission to actually make a Star Wars game, because people approach us all the time, and I think companies like Nintendo were always coming after them saying, let's make a Star Wars game. And they finally made some for the Super Nintendo, and then it busted out when they made X-Wing. And the first few games they're really awesome. X-Wing and TIE Fighter, and those are really good games. But you started to sense that once that entered the equation, it was kind of like a bowling ball in a bed. It was like this heavy weight that everything started rolling towards it, and you could just feel everything rolling, getting more and more heavy. And I don't know. Don't put a bowling ball in a bed, but I mean. And I don't think it was, because if you really put yourself in their position, say it was your money and you had $1 million and you could invest it in a completely made up thing that someone just thought was cool, or you could put it in Star Wars. It was like your money that you were counting on to like pay your mortgage with. You might be tempted to be like, I think I should put it in a Star Wars thing because I know I'll make a lot more money. So it was once that was open, it was inevitable. But it was too bad because as one was going up and one the original properties were going down and the Star Wars was going up, they did meet in the middle around the time that TIE Fighter came out and Full Throttle came out. They're around the same time, and all the games were good and making money. There was this nice balance of 50-50 in the company, and we had creative people still working there, like Peter Chan, and he could draw amazing Imperial Star Cruisers, but he could also draw stuff from Day of the Tentacle and Grim Fandango, and he liked working on both. But as soon as we were doing just Star Wars, a lot of those people kind of like left the company. And it's not noticeable at first because the company's still making money, still making Star Wars games, but you don't notice the kind of creative bleed out of the company. And I think that I see that going on at companies all over the industry in a lot of ways, like drawn to really safe investments and not realizing that creative people are not drawn to those same kind of challenges. And so they leave sometimes the industry. And you don't notice it at first because they're still making money, but something is kind of hollowing out and the thing's about to collapse. And I think I've seen that happen at companies besides Lucas, for sure. If that makes sense, or is that just too abstract sounding?
Over there. At the back? Oh, I'm talking, okay. I think both previous questions just lead into mine. I decided earlier this year to rectify my great gaming sin of not having played Grim Fandango. I'm over here, hello.
There you are.
There you are. I decided earlier this year to rectify my great gaming instead of not playing Grim Fandango so far, even though I'm such a big adventure fan, only to find online that I couldn't really buy it anywhere except for eBay off sellers who were collectors, that kind of thing. So I created a big sin as well and decided to pirate it to play it. But I was just wondering...
What?
I know, well, yeah, just hear me out. I just wonder if it still bothers you that you created these sort of classics of adventure games, but you don't own the IP for them anymore. I know your About page sort of says that people should stop asking you about making Full Throttle 2 and Grim Fandango 2 and so forth. I just wonder if it does bother you that these great games are no longer in your control. And also, as a follow-up question, can I come down there right now and give you $20 for Grim Fandango? No, seriously, he's right here.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about when we starting the company Double Fine, it was out of that frustration of not being able to own things that we made. So yeah, it does still bother me, but see how mad I got just then? So angry. And on the other hand, it's a blessing and a curse. You know, I couldn't make sequels to those games, but that, you know, also forced me to make up new things, you know, and if I had done a sequel to any of those games, there wouldn't have been the game after. So it's, I'm not sure which is better. Like, I wouldn't want to just make sequels to Grim Fandango all the time. But wait, you started that whole question with something else, didn't you? Oh. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know a lot of people at Lucas now. They've turned over a lot of people have come and gone, and the only way I can hear from them is if I do something like put the Grim Fandango design document on my website. Then they call really fast. But it's their lawyers who call. And it's not really that, but I do it once in a while just to hear from them. It's nice. How you been? Yeah. What are you doing? But it's okay if you pirated. You just got to go to our shop and buy a T-shirt, and then we're square. And make more money off of those.
I haven't been looking out for there's one over here.
Hi.
Hello.
With bearing in mind how much money you made on the Kickstarter, which obviously goes straight back into, you know, staffing, etc. But do you see future for traditional game publishing, or will you do your next game through another Kickstarter? I mean, I guess it depends on how successful Red is. But do you see yourself doing, or the company doing, another Kickstarter for the next one, or will you go the more traditional publishing route?
There's a really good question, and that's what I think about all the time, because I'm really loving the whole Kickstarter experience. Has been great. First of all, just all the people giving us money, awesome, but also the relationship with the backers. Hey, backers, yeah, and then but also having this the relationship we've had with the backers since we started the project is just more open than we've ever been with any of our games. You know, usually you keep everything really, really secret, and this time everything's really open because the backers, that's what we promised them, and so they're seeing concept art already and stuff. So, but the main thing that I like is just that every effort we put into the game is just to make the game good, and it doesn't have the overhead of when you work with a publisher and you have to have a lot of meetings about things that aren't making the game good, but they're just about making the wheels keep turning and the money keep coming. And it's just like, we have to have a meeting with the new guy who took over this department, wants to know about the game, so we have to change these features he doesn't like. And and publishers are not, despite what you heard, they're mostly not evil. It's just that there's it's time-consuming dialogues that you have to have, and we don't have any of those on our game. We just work on making the game better, and we do have some new things like handling the backers and talking to them on the forums and stuff. But it just feels better because you're doing the thing you want to do anyway. Like when you're making a game, you're always thinking about the players and hoping that they will like the game. So like putting all that effort into that spot just feels so much more natural. And I would like to do it again, but I feel like it's wrong to just roll that out again exactly like we did it before, because it was kind of a moment, kind of a unique kind of moment, and we'd have to find a new way of having a totally fresh, unique kind of experience happen again. And we are still other teams are working on games that are more appropriate to do with publishers, because they need some of the things that publishers can offer, whether it's technology or servers or expertise in a certain area. And then there's people like venture capitalists or angel investors who can make other things happen for you. So it's just great having multiple projects, so we can try multiple funding solutions too for all of them. Yeah.
Hi, over here, guys. Last night, Warren was talking about someone had done an assessment of his work, and there was consistent narratives throughout his games that looking back at them, the elements of his own life, or actually some of them weren't from his own life, but they were consistent. What about your games? Looking back at those, do you find consistent things within them that you've brought from your life into all those characters and themes that are consistent throughout the games?
I don't know. I almost don't know if I'm the best qualified person to do that, because I haven't looked at them that objectively. You can't see yourself in the things you're doing a lot because they're just natural for you. You know, characters talking a certain way, or I'm sure I have. And sometimes it's really charitable for, like, if someone was a critic was saying, and Tim's explored common themes in all his work, and really it's just that I forgot and I ripped myself off and I repeated myself and didn't realize it. Like, oh God, did I do that again? Oh God. and so I'm sure I have done that because I don't have, I do run out of ideas. But I don't know. I don't know if you just tell me if you've noticed that, and I'll think about it.
We've probably got time for one or two more questions max. So
that guy has a microphone already.
I'll just talk over everyone else with their hands up. Hi, Tim. So adventure games as a genre are kind of strong narrative-based compared to some of the other things, and it's people often play them for the story, for the characters, for the jokes, if it's a comedy adventure. Are puzzles that important to an adventure game?
That was a question that we did talk about a lot, and in the documentary you can see some interviews that we did with people. I met with people while they were in town for GDC. I met with Craig from Super Brothers and Chris from Cappy, and talking about Sword and Sorcery and how they're like, we didn't really enjoy the puzzles so much, and we wanted to make a game that was more about the flow of going through that world. And for me, it's just I felt like our kind of deal with the backers was to make an old school graphic adventure, and felt like they were cool with puzzles because they had backed the project, so they would probably be disappointed if they weren't puzzles in it. And also that is just to me, I really enjoy them. I come from that background of playing adventure games on my Scott Adams text adventures and Zork, and I really like those, and it's fun to make them, and I think it's fun to have them interact with the story and the characters so that the puzzles themselves are an expression of the character who's solving them, and there's just a lot of fun challenges with those. And I think we've learned a lot about how to make them better, like how to make them like more natural to solve, and like to come out of like not to make them easier. Like I don't think make them easier, but we learn more about like how to make them clear to people and to make that confusion you feel while you're trying to solve a puzzle more entertaining than frustrating. So yeah, puzzles. I'm pro puzzles.
Yes, for puzzles. Last question.
First of all, just want to say, love your work, love Day of the Tentacle, love Full Throttle, absolutely brilliant. I've actually been in the coin-op industry, video games, for the last 10 years or so, and I've always had a passion for gaming, and in particular also performing arts. I'm actually moving into wanting to try and do voiceover work. And I was just wondering your take on what would you recommend for voiceover work in the video games, because it seems to be everywhere now. And I was wondering, do you have any suggestions, tips, or whatever for someone looking to try and get into the voiceover world for video games?
That's interesting. I mean, I usually go through. We've worked with Chris Brown all these years. She's a casting agent, and we have a really regular process for how we cast for our games, which is she goes through, puts out a call for auditions, and usually agents send us bundles of auditions. So that's for our games that we use. I don't know if it's called the same thing down here, but we use SAG and AFTRA Union. Screen Actors Guild, something like that. Anyway, down in we do a lot of our voice recording in Los Angeles, so I'm probably not the best person to advise someone on a voice career because I've never had a voice career. I just know that we usually go through agents, but I don't. Not everybody does because. I don't think so. Who would you say, Warren? Let's ask Warren. He's really smart about these things. He works for a company in Hollywood. We get them from all the agencies. We get them from like William Morris, and there's a lot that specialize. There's a lot that specialize in just representing like animation talent. Moved to Los Angeles. There's that. That helps a lot of people. Warren's like, no. Move to Texas.
He smiled.
Yeah.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of our intimate conversation.
That was intimate.
That was quite intimate, actually.
That was intimate.
I'm feeling a bit warm.
I want to thank everyone for the questions, and thanks to everyone. If there is anyone outside in the cold actually watching this, thanks to all you guys outside down there by the spaceship.
Nice. Everyone, please thank Tim Schafer once again.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks to Craig.